Okay, so this is where things get a little bit weird, because when it comes to the Calder Trophy for next year, there are so many candidates on each of the teams I cheer for pretty much, which is really going to add to the excitement of this year's Calder race. I'm saying this year because it's 2021, 2022. I think we're in that period where we can start to say this year for the upcoming season, and if we want to refer to 2020, 2021, we can just say this past season. So this past season had a pretty boring Calder race, in my opinion, mostly because we had our Kirill Kaprizovs and we had our Jason Robertsons, but for the most part, Kaprizov was the guy who ran away with it early. Furthermore, Robertson didn't really put his name into contention until like a few weeks into the year. Nobody really thought he would be in that contention at the start of the season. Furthermore, we had a goaltender on a team that didn't go far, end up making the third spot, which is a lot different from the Jordan Binningtons of 2 years ago, who dragged the St. Louis Blues back from last place into the playoffs and into the Stanley Cup victory lap. It's a little bit of a different situation there. So this past year's Calder race, in my opinion, was somewhat boring compared to previous. But this upcoming season for the Calder, oh man, it's gonna be cool. We're gonna have so many names off of teams that I like, and that makes it fun for me because I like these teams. Yeah, I know, kind of selfish right there, aren't I? But either way, we had ourselves what was Odds Shark on Twitter post what is going to be defined as the betting odds for the Calder Trophy next year. This is what they tweeted. Here are the odds to win the 2022 Calder Trophy, and the way they format it is they put out in a basic sports betting format how much money you could win if you bet $100 on these players winning the Calder. Let's start out from last to first, because that way it's a lot more interesting, taking a look at who they feel is the least likely to win the Calder, but still noteworthy enough to have on the list, all the way up to the one that they think is going to be the Calder winner. So, in last place right here, they have 8 names listed on the tweet. Jamie Drysdale of the Anaheim Ducks. If you put $100 on Jamie Drysdale winning the Calder, you will receive a payout of $2,000 because they feel it's unlikely that Jamie Drysdale would win such a trophy. Next up, Trevor Zegras, also of the Anaheim Ducks. $2,000 payout for a $100 bet. That's 7th place. It's technically a tie, but you get what I mean. They're both Anaheim anyway. Sticking in California, though, going over to the 6th best player on the sports odds for the Calder, Quinton Byfield. $100 bet, $1,600 payout right here. He has a higher chance than Zegras and Drysdale from the guys over at OddsShark who are doing these calculations. Now, I personally am a very big fan of Byfield. If you were to ask me, who do I think is going to be Calder contention, I'd put Byfield in my top 3, but this website has him at number 6. 5th overall right here is a little bit more interesting. They have Moritz Seider at the 5th best odds. If you bet $100, you'll win $1,200. Now, this is honestly kind of strange for a lot of Red Wings fans, especially as you continue further along the list, because Seider's a guy that a lot of people consider to being the best defenseman outside of the National Hockey League. And if this guy comes over and plays in the NHL, there's a lot of expectation for him to be good right away. Next up, the 4th best odds, Nick Robertson. They have him tied with another player we're going to talk about here. If you bet $100 on Nick Robertson to win the Calder, you will win $400 if you get that correct. Now, we know Robertson has been in kind of a strange spot because he was up and down. He played in the bubble in 2020, spent some time with the Leafs in 2021, but was kind of injury-bitten, so he wasn't really the healthiest guy, and therefore he still has Calder eligibility next year. But the guy he is actually tied with is one that surprises the heck out of me too, despite the fact that I'm a Vancouver Canucks fan. They have Vasily Podkolzin here at an equal payout to Nick Robertson, in a tie for 3rd place in Calder Trophy odds. Now, Podkolzin to me is really weird because this is a guy who, yeah, I expect him to make the league and I expect him to be effective, but I don't really know if he's going to win the Calder, man. That's a little bit of a tall task. Now moving on to the top 2, they have themselves the 2nd best odds guy in their calculation. Hey, Red Wings fans, I said you'd be weirded out at this one. Lucas Raymond. If you bet 100, you win 225. As you can see, the numbers get lower and lower and lower, which means that these players have a higher and higher percentage chance of winning as we go along. But Lucas Raymond is technically the guy who, so far in this video, has the highest odds at winning the Calder from the names we have mentioned, which to me is kind of strange because I'm going to be honest, I don't even know if he's going to make the league. And if he does make the league and he wins the Calder, that's fantastic. I definitely don't want to discredit him from being able to do that. It's just I would not have predicted that in the slightest. And number 1, they have themselves Cole Caufield as the number 1 Calder Trophy odds guy. And it's not a surprise. It's Cole Caufield. He was fantastic in the bubble. He was already a solid top 6 point producer in there, and he hadn't even played his rookie season yet, despite the fact that he went to the Stanley Cup Finals. He is fantastic. He has scored goals everywhere he has gone. No questions about it. I would have had Caufield as my number 1 Calder pick as well. But as you can see right here, Caufield, Raymond, Podkolzin, Robertson, Seider, Byfield, Zegras, Drysdale, these are your current Calder Trophy odds from OddsShark. If you bet $100, you'll win $115 if you get Caufield right, $225 for Raymond, Podkolzin, Robertson, $400, etc. You go down the list, you know what it is. So this is strange because, in my opinion as a Red Wings fan, I would have put Seider at the top of my Calder list if I were trying to determine who on the Red Wings would win the Calder most likely. Mostly because Lucas Raymond, he's not really in a position where I think he's all too solidified to even making the league. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if he played, but I would not be surprised either if he was still eligible for the Calder next year, if you know what I mean. I guess if you had to make a defense, you would say, okay, the Calder is pretty much, we talk about this all the time, it's pretty much a points race. And I guess you could say it's more likely that if Raymond and Seider both play in 2021-2022, Raymond would get more points, but I don't want to make it seem like that's all too guaranteed, you know? Like, I still do think that Seider would be fantastic. Furthermore, Vasily Podkolzin being over here tied with Robertson, we noted this, it's a points race. Vasily Podkolzin was never really a big-time point producer, and I don't expect him to be that on the Vancouver Canucks either. I'd be really surprised if in 82 games played, Vasily Podkolzin cracked 45 points. And knowing the guys that are available in this rookie class, I'd be shocked if none of the other rookies were able to eclipse Vasily Podkolzin, putting him in a position to win the Calder. Let's be real here, Podkolzin can be as good two-way, as good on the PK as we want him to be, but at the end of the day, the guys who watch these games, the guys who vote on these awards, they're not staying up for Vancouver games. They're not going to be able to watch Podkolzin block 2 shots on a full-time 2-minute penalty kill in his own zone and clear the puck out before hustling to the bench. They're not going to see that. They're going to see the points. They're going to see the amount of numbers that Podkolzin is able to put up. And in my opinion, I don't really know if he's going to be able to do that against the Byfields and the Zegrases and the Caufields. So, yeah, saying that Podkolzin has a higher chance of winning the Calder than Byfield and Zegras, in my opinion, not really too sure how confident I am in that assessment. As for Byfield and Zegras, though, when it comes to points, I think these guys are going to go out there and do it. For Byfield, the only real obstacle for him, in my opinion, is... it's Doughty, it's Deneau, it's Vilardi, it's everybody else in his team that's technically ahead of him on the depth chart, because Byfield's a guy to me who, if you just let him be free, you don't hold him down and say, alright, you're playing third-line minutes behind Deneau, behind Kopitar and all of them, if you just let him go, he's going to go out there, he's going to produce. Same with Trevor Zegras. I think this guy is an absolute wizard on the ice, and he's going to be doing crazy things in the NHL next season. Maybe even alongside a Mason McTavish. Who really knows? I don't really think that's possible, but who knows? If it were up to me, the guys who would be leading the Calder race, if I were to put, betting odds on it or whatever, I'd say Cole Perfetti's up there too, Winnipeg Jets guy. He's going to be given a great opportunity with the Jets because he was so good in the Manitoba Moose system this past season. It'd be a crime to send him back to the OHL. Perfetti, Byfield, I'd have Caufield in there for sure. I'd also have Zegras. And that's kind of it, I'd have maybe the Robertsons in there as well. I'd have maybe Seider because you never know how good a defenseman can be. But having Raymond up there, I don't know. Having Podkolzin up there, I don't know either. So that's kind of my assessment here on the OddsShark's Calder Trophy odds. Talk to me in the comments what you think. If you're a Vancouver Canucks fan, do you think Podkolzin has a good chance at winning the Calder? You gotta remember, Nils Höglander is projected to being a higher offensively capable player than Podkolzin is. And Höglander wasn't near the Calder Trophy last year. He didn't even get a sniff of it. I would not be surprised if Podkolzin produced less than Höglander. Next up for Red Wings fans, do you think Raymond has a higher chance of winning the Calder than Seider? And am I alone in the idea that Raymond might not have even made the team full-time for a full 82-game season? And I'm kind of surprised to see him as the second best guy on this list. As for Montreal fans, you kind of know what Caufield is. Is he going to win the Calder? Talk to me in the comments what you think. I hope you enjoyed this Trolls 99. And bye.